It's a fully dynamic, completely customizable analysis platform that's geared for real estate data. I mean, we individually map every MLS. After we map an MLS, all you need is to create is a custom export. You can export your market data and then you can load it into this platform, and just imagine being able to on the fly be able to statistically source all different data points, because we load that data, table it, and index it so that you're just running wild.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair once again. I've got a great guest coming up. But first, I want to remind you we are sponsored by three great companies, A La Mode being one of those. Folks, I've been using A La Mode for over 20 years. You should be as well. In fact, I just had a conversation this morning. I can't wait to tell you about somebody else using a different product. I won't use their name, but why it is that I use A La Mode. So stay tuned for that. You can contact them in the meanwhile at 800 A La Mode or www.alamode.com. Another program that I use on a regular basis, of course, is DataMaster. DataMaster allows me to save 30 to 60 minutes per report and allows me to be able to put the data in without fat fingering it. Check them out. Go to datamasterusa.com. One more time, it's datamasterusa.com. And finally, we are sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Of course, Working RE is where I go pretty much on a twice a week basis to find out what's going on in the appraisal world. They're very on top of what is happening, which is one of the topics we're going to be talking about today. In the meanwhile, you can check them out. Go to workingre.com. One more time, it is workingre.com. Well, folks, this is a long time in the running. This interview today, I'm very excited to have an individual who knows his stuff, very much knows about data, very much knows about the prospects of the appraisal world. His name is Mr. Michael Gandy. You know him with Gandysoft software, and I want to welcome you to the program, Mr. Michael. Welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks, Dustin. We nothing better than being on with the Appraiser Coach.
Well, you're very kind. You and I met several years ago. I remember it well. You probably don't remember it because it was a very long time ago, and it was probably long before I had a name out there. But we ran into each other at a conference you were presenting at, and I sat down and I looked at your software and was very impressed and a little overwhelmed with all that you can do. And I know we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But first of all, I want to introduce you, Michael. Michael's bio reads like this. Mr. Gandy is a certified residential appraiser in the state of Nevada. With over 25 years of experience working in the real estate appraisal sector, he's keenly aware of the challenges that appraisers face and of the limitations of current solutions. It was this understanding that led him to develop the concept of improving and automating paired sales analysis. And I know we're going to get into that here in a little bit, Michael, talking about paired sales analysis, what it can and can't do. In addition to his duties with Gandysoft, he still enjoys being an active residential appraiser. So you're still appraising, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right. So prior to the formation of Gandysoft and to the current, Michael owns and operates the company called Las Vegas Analytics, a premier provider of residential real estate appraisals in the greater Las Vegas, Nevada area. Well, you know what? That's not even actually appraising. I have to say, I've got some friends down there in Las Vegas, and I tell you, you guys have it pretty easy.
Yeah. We are land of the tract home, and it's we've got a lot of homogeneous data out here.
Of course, your fees reflect it too. I know that too.
That's true, but you know what? We've got we've got some pretty high dollar stuff, complex stuff that those with the sharper teeth can still focus on a little bit higher valuation, no doubt.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Gandy, of course, is happily married, and he is the father of three wonderful children. What ages, my friend?
15, 9, and 6.
Wow, you just rattled that off like you actually knew it.
Yeah, I do. That six is the oops baby, but we like him, so we'll keep
Yeah,
it.
right on. Very good. Good for you. Well, thank you for being on the program. Like I mentioned earlier, you and I ran into each other several years ago. I did sit through a demo, and I don't know if I've done it since. I think things have probably changed with Gandysoft over the years, I would guess.
Oh yeah, you know what? We're constantly making additions and improvements, and I mean we've got some pretty exciting stuff coming out in the short term. This year certainly, but it's just a continual process for us. And I
Yeah.
mean that's you'll never get done. I mean there's just
Technology's never over, is it?
never. I mean there's just always other things you can address and get better at too.
Right on. Right on. Well, let's start with the foundation, if you don't mind, Michael. I would assume 99% of my listeners know and have heard of Gandysoft. I know pretty much what it does, but let's talk to the 1% for just a second. What is Gandysoft?
It's a fully dynamic, completely customizable analysis platform that's geared for real estate data. I mean, we individually map every MLS. After we map an MLS, all you need is to create is a custom export. You can export your market data, and then you can load it into this platform. And just imagine being able to on the fly be able to statistically source all different data points, because we load that data, table it, and index it so that you're just running wild. So it's a seriously powerful analytics platform that's geared for real estate data specifically, and it's tailor made to different MLS systems.
Okay, so you can download directly from the MLS, and it takes the data and basically manipulates it in such a way that makes it more readable. Is that a good way to put it?
Basically, yeah. I mean, you can do a lot of the functions in our platform on Excel, but just alone trying to, let's say, do the setup for price per square foot analysis. I mean, when you load the data and get to that part of the process, you can add, I mean, even pivot tables take time to set up. So with ours,
Right.
It's just a matter of pushing a button. Those statistical methods are right there.
Okay, good. So let's back up for a second and talk about how this integrates and how this works as a boots on the ground appraiser. For example, I've got 5 MLS systems that I work off of, and I know that that's not, well, maybe a little unusual for some appraisers, but most appraisers have maybe two or three that they work with, depending on how big their territory is. Are you telling me that if I'm using your product, I can use that product with each of those 5 MLSs?
Yeah, we have a user in Texas that actually has 6 MLS systems.
Oh man, I got beat out again.
Yeah, and his one account, because when you go to upload the data, prior to uploading the data, you just you have a default, of course, for your source selection, but all you have to do is drop down to the source of which MLS that data is coming from to make sure that it's been that you get the most functionality out of the mapping.
Okay, all right.
So
cool.
yeah, it works as with as many systems. If you can get an export, you can. It works. One account doesn't matter.
Okay. How does this integrate with say a la mode or some of these other form filling softwares?
So right now we're kind of the statistical analysis envelope, where at the end of the process we do allow and generate for you PDF reports that can be imported into those different form fillers. Right now we are not directly integrated.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. That's an efficiency we know a lot of appraisers want, is the data importing. We started off as a core objective, those statistical analysis, not so much focused on the efficiency. We've got a few more statistical tools that are going to be appraiser controlled and driven, pretty wild, but easy to use. And once we do that, of course, the natural solution next would be to go to the integration and provide the efficiency. We started off with the analysis providing before we got to the efficiency side.
And the purpose of the analysis, some appraisers would be asking, well, you know what, Michael, that's what you pay me, the appraiser, did. I know the market. I understand the market. I know an adjustment for a fireplace is $2,500. I just know it. What's the purpose of the analysis? And obviously I'm being a little bit tongue in cheek, but let's talk, basics as far as what is it that Gandysoft does? Why does an appraiser need something like that?
Sure. Well, when it comes to the market dynamics, as far as time trending, prices and stuff like that, I mean, you just can't beat being able to, with the snap of a finger, be able to trend out data for a year, 2 years, the last 6 months, 3 months. I mean, to really parse down to see, trend changes take time to find out. Typically in real estate, it's like the Titanic. It usually doesn't move overnight. So sometimes you really need to take a micro approach and analyze certain candles. But the other stuff you're talking about, so when you say the 2,500 for the fireplace, here's the great thing about that. So that's subjective if you just say it out like you just did.
Come on now. Come on. My mentor told me it was 2,500, Michael. Don't challenge me.
Now, the interesting thing is, though, is we believe that your subjective opinion, typically balanced with that experience, does matter.
Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. You may actually be able to validate a lot of your book of experience from the subjective, looking at it objective.
Right.
So once you do that and reconcile objective data points, now you've just turned subjective opinion into reconciliation of objective data points. That's how you win. That's how you support what you've been doing and actually can back it up and support it.
Okay. All right. So let's talk bolts and nuts here for a second. An appraiser comes to you and says, Michael, I feel like I need support for my reports. I feel pretty good about my reports, but I know if I'm going to be standing before a state board or some other similar, or even a client, comes back and says, hey, where did you get that adjustment from? I know I need something more than licking my finger and sticking it in the air, right? And so I'm looking at Gandysoft. Sell me on Gandysoft.
So, you know what? I mean, such a good point. I mean, we have a user that literally, she got turned in. How frightening is this, Dustin? I mean, she literally got turned in for 4 appraisal reports by an AMC, a national one that we all know if I mention the name.
Oh, yeah. I can tell you who it is right now because I see that happening a lot right now with this.
Exactly. And for the sole purpose, those 4 reports were turned in was because her adjustments didn't fit the CU model results. Now, I want you to know she went through that process, went through the board, investigators and everything, had been using our platform for a long time, had all the work file documentation, ended up getting a pat on the back, exonerated, no problem. Okay. She did the analysis. And it goes to show you the broader point of making up the adjustment, or why do you need it? If you don't have any kind of analysis that you're doing, and this is so much further ahead of what our typical analysis, for example, the simple thing appraisers used to do sometimes would be for an item like a pool, a simple grouping statistics. You'd group properties of a submarket without pool and with pool. Sure. And then you take a simple, and certainly you can do that. But all of our properties in your data set that you upload, if you go through the market rate of application, we apply market rate adjustments from the contract dates to the effective date of the analysis prior to extracting out the adjustments. So, as far as a mathematically accurate way, this platform, when people say, oh, I can do this with Microsoft Excel, you can do a lot of the functions, but it's going to take a whole lot of time. I don't care what kind of macro skills you've got. It's just going to take a lot of setup time, and you're still not going to get. You're still probably not going to get the prowess.
Yeah. There's a handful of companies that come to mind that have a similar tagline, if you will, meaning they're out there specifically to support appraisers' adjustments, or to help them to be able to support their adjustments is probably a better way to put it. What separates Gandysoft from some of those other companies?
The vast majority that I should talk about in the adjustment space would be centered on what your basic AVMs are centered on, multiple regression. And here's the trick. Multiple regression is fantastic. It's an equation. That's all it is. Mathematical equation. We all know this. And it's fantastic at looking at large sets of data and modeling for evaluations over large sets of data. The actual reality is, though, because of the average randomness in data, even in regular submarkets, multiple regression is really probably not the most practical approach to extracting adjustments, or real estate for that matter, the independent coefficients in that data. So what we do is we have a basket of absolutely fabulous statistical methods: sensitivity analysis, cumulative match pairs, least squares, the most common form of regression on the planet, basic groupings. All these different basket of statistical methods, which certainly, if multiple regression may be the way you like, it certainly doesn't take away or decay the credibility of those methods. We lay out the results from low to high and allow the professional, based on that experience, where Dustin can hop in and say, hey, I see fireplace going from 1,100 to 4,000. I'm going to rope in what's reasonably credible and pull the trigger at 2,500 because that's what he said his experience said. So we give you that objective environment to apply your experience and your judgment.
One of the things that I hear you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to parrot back what I'm hearing, at least how I'm simulating the information, because I think this is a positive. Some of these programs will come back with a single number. The adjustment for square footage is 67.34, per square foot. Are you saying that Gandysoft will give you a range that then you can use your expertise in choosing?
Right. So that's what we do. I mean, we allow the reconciliation. So, of course, we have work file reports that are different. That's not for the layman. But in the adjustment process, we allow you to select from the low end of credible. This is what you're supposed to do, to the high end of credible. And then we give you a precursor showing that range, and we run some statistics on it, averages and medians. And then we allow you to define a fixed number between that range, the low and the high. There's the reconciliation process at the heart of appraising. We're just allowing you to start thinking about it in the adjustment phase rather than reconciling the adjusted prices of your comps to pick a value.
Gotcha.
So it's the same principle. It goes to the heart of appraising, but it's practical and pragmatic. And we don't show that range to the layman. Now, in your work file report, certainly you have that. Sure. But we allow you to validate a fixed static number.
But for example, if you've got a situation where a state board comes a knocking, or even the client, on a lower level, the client comes, and this happens all the time. We turn in a report. I see you use $75 a square foot. Where did you get that from? What you're saying is I could immediately, even if it's been a couple of weeks or a couple of months, or even, heaven forbid, a couple of years since I did that, I can now go back to my work file and say, well, there's a range of 72 to 78, and I picked 75 because of this, but that range came from X amount. In other words, what's in my work file may not be seen in my report, but if I'm asked the question, I can always go back and support what I did.
Absolutely. And we do provide customer-friendly reports that are worthy of inclusion, that are kind of geared to the layman. Gotcha. And as well as the underwriter or the downstream viewers.
So you don't even get asked the question sometimes if you've already got that in there.
Yeah. And that one actually shows your number validated. It shows what statistical methods you reviewed in the reconciliation of that number. And then it also has light definitions of those statistical methods. So you're just showing the stuff that makes sense. Oh, how much is the pool? 10,000 based on least square, steel, cent, and grouping statistics.
Nice. Love it. Okay. So as you know, I've got mastermind groups across the country. There's 6 of them currently, and we get into this kind of thing quite often, actually. One of the challenges, and we're going to talk about this more after the break, as far as the challenges that appraisers are facing, what the future looks like for appraisers. But just to set up the question here, we often get my mastermind students talking about the need for support, and your software comes up, some of the other softwares come up, and some individuals in the room use certain software, some use other softwares. Great thing about a mastermind is you've got multiple minds in that meeting who have multiple experiences that they can bring to the table. And one of the comments that is often made is that Gandysoft is a very smart program. Yeah, I hear that phrase quite a bit, but it throws a lot of data at you. And I think that sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming to appraisers. So let's first talk about what kind of data is thrown at an appraiser. Okay. Why is it they're making these comments? And then let's go to the heart of how would you answer an appraiser who says, man, there's just so much data coming at me. I don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, so, we've taken painstaking steps to make the program not frightening. Certainly, it's easy to navigate.
That's a better way to put it. Yeah, it's scary.
Easy to use for the most part. And there's really a whole host of things that are underneath the lid that people stumble across. Sometimes I do a private session after users been using for a while, and I can explore some of the nuances that are built in for the users to use. But we don't talk about, because again, it's almost like your users may have said, data overload. You don't want to frighten people off from the premise. So as far as data overload, there's a lot of different data points, but this is completely customizable too. So the first time you do your setup, you can set up your default schemes of what you want to see in market charting, trending. You can have it appear the same way every time. So if there's too much, you can pare that down, add what you want. The rest of it, I would imagine data overload comes with the basic statistics adjustment estimates. And this program, unlike multiple regression for the most part, is really geared towards sub-market analysis. So the better you shape that sub-market, the less errors you're going to find, which errors happen in real estate data. I mean, it's just a random set of data and prices. I mean, it's not uniform. So the problem, a lot of appraisers are super good actually at forming a submarket with plus or minus 15, 20% livable area, age, design, all that. And it's a pernicious problem that most people at first, until they start looking at statistics, forget is the pricing situation. Now, we're not saying that, you want to search by price alone. That we know that you can't do that. And I think that's what appraisers are just, it's built into their, I can't focus on price. Right. But in conjunction with other parameters, it should be a consideration. Sure, I mean, try that as a realtor. Yep. I mean, if you get a client that says, hey, Dustin, I want you to show me a $200,000 house, ranch, 1,500 square foot house in this area, and you come back and start showing him a house that's $480,000, he's going to look at you like you have a problem. Right. So the problem thing that people leave out is that price banding. So you'll do those well-formed, you say all this data, you're telling the statistics that all this data is similar in all attributes, but yet I got a sales price going from 64,000 to 820. And when you get that kind of variation in prices melded with the fact of all this data is supposed to be reasonably competitive, you're trying to account for a huge amount of variation in pricing for negligible amounts of differences in variables. And so you get spaghetti. Yeah. And so then you can get widened results. When you really form that sub-market down though, Dustin, you'll be amazed at how much the different methods will light up in the similar area.
Well, that brings up another question, and this is a question from me, not necessarily the mastermind group, is I've used some programs in the past, and often what I run into is statistical programs work really well when there's a lot of data, and they don't work so well when there's not. And I live in the world of not. I live in the world of Idaho and Wyoming, where there's just not a whole lot of data, where you literally are appraising in a town of 300 that's had 3 sales in the last 3 years, right? How do you come up with statistical sampling and support for adjustments in that situation? What would you say to someone like me who's a little bit skeptical of a program that manipulates data, if you will? And I meant manipulate in a good way, by the way.
Oh, no, I completely understand. And I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're not status dependent. So we do allow you to pull, rather than going wider just to get more data points. We tell people, hey, go deeper, use the same sub-market you would use, but use a couple of years of data unless there's been drastic changes in the market. But at the end of the day, law of numbers applies always. I mean, we can get fantastic results with decent correlated small sets of data for multiple data points. But the reality is that law of numbers will help that situation. Sure. More data points of similar data will help. So in your situation, when you're dealing with rural oddball properties, it really is. It's almost impractical to be able to apply a statistical environment. Now, what you could do is, in the absence of being able to get your hands around a reasonable set of data, you might have to expand until you get a reasonable amount of data points. Okay. And I mean, expand out your parameters. You just kind of open up the carburetor a little until Appraisal Institute, for example, I mean, they're going to want, they recommend 30 data points for any kind of reliable trending. Doesn't mean you can't get reliable with 10. Just means that you have it could get skewed if you're not careful on the axis. So in your situation, you might have to say, hey, in that situation, a sub-market's really laughable. I might have to just pull all the sales within 2 or 3 years and do the best I can.
Right. Or even go to a similar, I assume you could go to a similar market that's nearby that maybe has some more data points and apply that across the board.
Absolutely, you could. Okay. I mean, absolutely.
Okay, the $64,000 question. I know that everybody listening to this is just hanging, or they're sitting on the edge of their seats. They want to know, and let me set it up this way. Appraisers, let's just speak bluntly, right? You work the Las Vegas market. I happen to know a little bit about the fees in the Las Vegas market. You only get so much per appraisal. Statistically, it doesn't make sense economically to spend, 15, 20 hours on every appraisal. You do that, you're going to go out of business very quick. In other words, we as appraisers have to find this balance between speed, efficiency, but quality as well, right? And a program like yours, I assume helps with the quality side of things, but most people are going to be saying, well, how much time is this going to take? If I have to run statistics on all of these subpoints and come up with some type of support for my adjustments, am I going to be into this 10, 15 hours on every appraisal?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. So no, I mean, after using the platform for a while, I mean, usually you're somewhere around 4 to 5 minutes, soup to nuts. And I mean,
You said
it
4 to 5
really,
hours, right?
but now here's the problem, Dustin. So we get people that come to us. There's two schools of thought. There's people that come to us that are spending a lot of time with pivot tables and stuff like that. They try
That's
the
me.
program and they do backflips because they realize the time saver. Now, here's the problem though with a lot of our peers that aren't doing any analysis or very minimal. To them, that 5 minutes may actually be an add-on, additive to the process.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then nobody wants to increase the time load and pay for the advantage of it. So it's really a mixed bag. I mean, we try to communicate the best we can. It just depends on what type of person you're getting. Like I said, soup to nuts, 5 minutes is about all you need, if that. And I mean, it's just I don't know.
But we're talking 5 minutes. I mean, we're talking 5 minutes, and sometimes that's the difference between keeping your license and not keeping your license, right?
Oh, hey, yeah. And I mean, it's a statistic, and that's the great thing about it. It's really, we have a lot of users that, it really reinvigorates their love for the profession, being able to meld the statistical side and put it into practice in their appraisal work. We got people that all the time just, can't thank us enough to be able to sleep at night, knowing that they're putting out a product they can defend.
That's the key right there. We're talking with Michael Gandy, of course, of Gandysoft. Many of you have heard of Gandysoft, the ability to be able to support your adjustments and to work with the data that you as appraisers work with every day. Speaking of data, of course, Data Master is a sponsor here. Data Master is the ability to save 30 to 60 minutes per report. What does that mean? I say that often. Let's talk about it, okay? I use Data Master, and I'm telling you folks, the difference between hand typing each of those comparables, the subject data, the tax information, and being able to import it directly. I know the MC sheet has gone away for most clients, but it's still out there for some, right? The ability to import that information directly into your report is huge. Data Master will save you time and will increase the quality of your reports. Reach out to them. Go to datamasterusa.com. One more time, it's datamasterusa.com. Folks, had an interesting conversation with another appraiser just this morning about software, and she asked me specifically, why is it that you use All the Mode? She was looking at another service. And I said, listen, I know that service. I know the individual that owns that company. It's a good service. It's a good software. Let me tell you why I use a la mode. And then I started laying out some of the tools that I know a la mode has that some of these others don't have. And I'll tell you, her eyes got wide. And she was sold within a couple of minutes. Why? Yeah. Are you going to pay possibly a little bit more for a la mode? I think so. But I'll tell you, folks, we're talking today with Michael about quality and about what that does for your reports, efficiency, and the ability to utilize the tools that will help you to be a better appraiser. Alamode will do that for you. Check them out. Go to alamode.com. And by the way, you can watch their training videos there and look at some of these tools that you may not be currently utilizing that you could be. alamode.com or 800 Alamode. Finally, we are sponsored today by Working RE Magazine. Folks, if you are not signed up for the email, it's free, folks. FREE. The email from Working RE Magazine. Check them out. Go to workingre.com. Just wait a couple seconds on their homepage. You will have a little box pop up. Yeah, it's annoying. I hate those boxes, right? But I'll tell you, put your email in there. That's not going to be annoying. The ability to be able to receive an email once or twice a week from a company who really gets it, who understands appraisers and will help you to be a better appraiser by helping you to be in the know and have information about what's going on in the appraisal world. Again, it's workingre.com. One more time, workingre.com. And we are back, folks. We're talking today with a good friend of mine, Mr. Michael Gandy. Welcome to the program, Michael. I appreciate you being on today.
So great to be here. I appreciate the invite.
We've had really good talk so far about Gandysoft, and I want to get into a little bit of what's going on in the appraisal world in your mind and where you see things going. But in general, is there anything else about Gandysoft that we didn't hit on that you think would be important for appraisers to know?
No, just, other than, all the power of the most sophisticated AVM tools that are completely driven by the appraiser. You define the data, you can clean the data, market trending, adjustment extractions, your market condition. We've got that 1004MC. I mean, just the full circle suit of armor for the appraiser. I mean, that's really what it was, designed by an appraiser for the appraiser. And I mean,
love it.
It gives you the tools to compete. And like I said before earlier, appraiser, the human navigated analysis process will beat out the automated one every time.
Let's talk about that. I think that's a big fear right now of appraisers. They look at what Zillow's doing. They look at some of these AVMs and some of the things they can do. And let's just be honest, between friends, right? They're getting better. They really are. These programs are getting very good at what they do, but they can only do so much. What would you say to an appraiser who says, I think the computer's going to take over the appraiser's job in the future?
Yeah. So, no, it's not. Well, depending on where you're at in the stream, it could. You may get displaced if you don't get on board. What's going to happen is we're entering a paradigm, obviously, where we're going to have at the advantage of these different technological, advances, computer powers, processing. And we're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to start applying statistical analysis and data fact finding into your development of an appraisal. It's just how it's going to be, and that's the sneaky thing. The appraisers that don't take the time to start to expand and learn into that. The sexy thing about the automated things right now, Dustin, is they show you that stuff. And visual optics of statistical trending or whatever tables they're showing you, you can hold your hat on something that you can see. The problem with a lot of appraisals is it's just a form filled out and signed, right. And there's nothing visually or optically pleasant to see.
Well, what would you say to an appraiser who says, well, and I don't know if they would actually say this out loud, right? But I think their actions probably say it stronger than their words, that, I've done this. It's worked for me fine all of this time. I've never really had quote unquote support for adjustments. I've really never done pivot tables. I've never really done paired sales other than, the quote that I put in every one of my templates that says I looked at paired sales where I could. Whenever the client comes back and says, where did you get that adjustment? I basically say it was market driven, and usually that appeases them. What would you say to an appraiser who continues to work the way they always have? What's changing now in your mind that makes this more important?
Well, so that's just not going to be acceptable. I mean, you can see there's a lot already on the front end. For example, I believe it's JP Chase Morgan or whatever, JP Morgan Chase, whatever they call themselves at this point. I think they're the first one that fired off a salvo last year at protocol. All adjustments had to show the support.
Right.
And that 3-page, it's all, I kind of chuckle when I look on some of the forums and I see these elongated 3-page documents that appraisers will put online that basically show their comment that they put in of how they derived their adjustments. And I laugh and I go, God, you spent 3 days crafting this beautiful piece of work. How about you just spend a few minutes doing the adjustment extraction instead of trying to make some legal piece of work that says, hey, this is why I did it. So the reality is data, the big data is there. So whenever we're in a situation where data is there, we can cull this data. Automated programs can cull this data and start to parse it down. So even though automated systems may be wrong, in the absence of you providing data that disagrees with their findings, then they're going to assume you're wrong. So you're getting into a place where the appraiser that doesn't employ tools to back up their analysis is going to be like the emperor that has no clothes. You're going to be naked in an environment where everybody is visually being able to see the data.
Let's just be
swallows of it.
Let's just be blunt about it. BS doesn't. It may have worked in the past. It's not going to work in the future.
Absolutely. And you know what? My dad was an appraiser back in the dot matrix days. So, we've only been able to export really large sets of data for 10 years or so. So, the BS could it was really hard to double check or counter a BS comment back in the day because the data wasn't available.
Right.
Even now, if someone doesn't have access to your MLS, a computer can easily plug into public records and at least try to filter down to an area and get a good idea of, are you on the level or not? And if you get called on the carpet, the only way to protect yourself is to be able to argue. And if you don't have the tools to do that, you're just setting yourself up for a problem.
Gandysoft comes at this problem from various different angles. We talked about that. There's various things you can look at. When you are, as an appraiser, look at that and come back and let's say there's how many data points are we looking at? I mean, how many processes does Gandysoft take in finding a support for adjustment?
So I guess technically 8, but
8,
set.
okay.
So if you're in the basic statistics, there's a basket of 7 statistical methods, and then we have our own advanced modeling section, which technically would be the eighth,
okay.
Which is based on the paired sales analysis and the iterative method.
So let's say that an appraiser is using a program like yours, and you've got 8 different approaches there. You've also got 8 different answers, and some of those can be wildly different, right?
Well, actually, it's more than that. So you could have 7 different methods, but then you have up to 25 estimates, and you may say, well, how's that possible? Well, remember, cumulative matched pairs, for example, is a method.
Right.
But you can also have the average, the median, and then what we call the mega mean, which is basically a basket of 6 different central point indicators. So that matched pairs might deliver 3 different results from the different central indicators.
So what's an appraiser to do, Michael? I mean, that sounds so confusing. I don't like to be confused. How do I pick?
Guess the question is what do you do now?
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
There it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and that is a good point. I'm glad you're bringing it up because you will see that sometimes just this, and this is the greatest exercise for appraisers, this program. At least we got a 14-day free trial. Give it a try. And what I'm saying is it dispels the myth that there's a one number for everything, or that a method works 100% of the time on 100% of the data sets. This will show you in certain cases where sensitivity analysis will be so goofball wacky on the low or the high side on a data set because of your data, or it'll be spot on. And it allows your brain to start processing that. Oh, you know what? It's not the method. It's sometimes it's the way your data lies underneath the hood that you don't look at. We'd love to provide all the numbers you want to see every time fixed, but it's just not what we do. We just provide the automated environment to analyze your data. So if you don't like the numbers, only thing you can do is change the data.
Okay, good. Parting advice that you would give to appraisers, Michael.
Embrace technology. You know what? There's other platforms out there. I can't speak to the efficacy of them. I've seen some that I don't particularly care for. But you know what? You got to start exploring different technology. You want to do the manual because you want to do it. Learn how to create a macro, Microsoft Excel macro, and or explore tools like this. Get an understanding of what's available. And we firmly agree that this platform is designed for the valuation professional because we want to augment their experience and judgment because, like I said, the human-driven analysis is going to beat out automation every time. I mean, it's just going to beat it out. But it does take your experience and judgment to go through the process.
Michael Gandy is the name. Gandysoft is the company name. Michael, where do they find you? Where, if appraisers are interested, where should they go?
Easy peasy, Gandysoft.com.
Spell that for us.
That's where you need to go.
Gandysoft, right?
Yeah, thank you for spelling it.
All right, Michael. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We've, of course, been talking to Michael. One of the comments that have also come up, in fact, just last week, as we were talking about support for adjustments, and Gandysoft came up in my mastermind group there in Las Vegas. I had an individual say, you know what, Michael is the nicest guy you'll ever meet, and he will bend over backward to help you out. So I hope you felt that today as he came on and shared with you Gandysoft. By the way, I didn't say this up front, but I'll say it now. those of you who have software out there, I am here to help out appraisers. As somebody who does have sponsors on my program, I have to be a little bit careful that we don't interrupt that, obviously for obvious reasons. But if you have a software out there or have stuff that can help appraisers, my goal is to help appraisers. Just reach out to me, thecoach@theappraisercoach.com. You can send me an email or reach out to me on Facebook. We would love to look at what you have and see if it's fitting to share with appraisers anytime. Speaking of masterminds, folks, we have a great group of people across the nation and a couple of seats open still. We would love to have you be a part. We've got 2 groups in Vegas, one in Salt Lake, one in Dallas, one in Chicago, and of course, one in Washington, D.C. And we would love to have you be a part of those in person, in a conference room, once a quarter meeting, as well as interaction throughout between meetings. Reach out to my assistant. Her email is theassistant@theappraisercoach.com. Again, theassistant@theappraisercoach.com. Again, thank you, Michael Gandy, for being on, folks, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
All right, Michael, what do you think?
Awesome.
Okay. Anything you worried about that you want me to go back and edit at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm kind of an open book. Gaskill, you got any corrections for me, Gaskill?
So I think we did miss one point that it would have been nice to have, and that's that we support any variable that that your MLS provides or that you can come up with on your own. And that really actually does differentiate us from every single analytical platform on the market.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a good point, Dustin. Just to give you an idea, we just mapped a California MLS a couple of weeks ago, and we created the variable cannabis permitted. Which
I love it.
Yeah, which is actually a formatted variable. They have a yes/no field, and we went ahead and mapped it. And by the way, we ran a couple sets of data. And it appears there's a premium for properties that cannabis permitted for growing.
So what you're saying, Michaels, is any aspect, any field, if you will, that your MLS has, you can map that and then start to track and look at the data on it.
Right, especially the one. I mean, the public remark ones are different, but any field that has normalized outputs where they can select cover patio, cannabis permitted. I mean, greenhouse, solar panels. I mean, we map extensive. I mean, that is a good point. We didn't really get into it, but we do extensive mapping. I mean, it's deep.
Yeah, we do extract a lot of information out of the MLS, but you can actually also create your own custom fields. So one of the demos video on our YouTube site, Michael actually creates a custom variable for backing to a freeway.
Oh, right on.
Right.
So and that's discoverable by mapping.
Yep.
By looking at a map, you can populate that easily, and you can get adjustments based on do I back a freeway or not?
Let me make sure I get this straight. So if your MLS does not because what MLS is going to say it backs to a freeway, right? But what you're saying as an appraiser, I can put that in your system and say, these 5 back to a freeway, these 15 don't. What's the difference?
Absolutely, you can.
I love it.
Yeah, that's the versatile nature of the platform. So we map all those things coming out of your MLS, and in addition to that, you can open up the CSV, go to make a column header, whatever you want, mark a property with a Y that has that attribute, an N that doesn't have it, save the data file, load it up, and all of a sudden it'll create a variable for that as well.
That is so cool. Awesome.